Well, good evening, everyone. Here to proudly announce the fiscal 2016 budget. Honored to be here with Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito and all of our colleagues in government from the City Council. This has been a great process, people working together over these last weeks in common cause to get to a budget that was good for the people of the city. This budget will be over $78.5 billion with a strong focus on fighting inequality, on strengthening our city and its future, and lifting up all New Yorkers. I'll give a quick overview, then introduce the Speaker, and then after that, the Chair of the City Council Finance Committee. And then as we take questions and answers in a bit, we'll be joined by the OMB Director, Dean Fullahan. But tonight we'll give you the quick overview on the budget. There will be a lot more information provided in the next few days leading up to the formal budget adoption process. This budget, as always, is a statement of our values. The focus has been on being fiscally responsible, on continuing to build a progressive vision for the city, and being honest about what it really costs and how we have to do it. And I'm proud to say this budget is not only on time, it's early. Great effort. And that's because of the cooperation with all the council members and the administration, all the staffs, the constant work that went into this. Even when there wasn't total agreement, there was an atmosphere of cooperation and respect, and the result is quite clear. Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito, Chair Julissa Ferreras led this process with great energy and professionalism. That's why we've gotten to the result we have. I want to thank them and their staffs, of course, Dean Fullahan and his staff, everyone who's been involved. And what is clear is we share values. We share strong values, and that animates this budget. It doesn't mean everything went easily. Sometimes there were some tough conversations, but we got through them because we had a common resolve to help our communities. We also knew we had to secure the fiscal future of this city. I'm going to mention just three highlights of this budget. I know the Speaker will mention some others before we take your questions. We'll hear from Chair Ferreras and then take your questions. First item I want to highlight, very near and dear to my heart, we have continued to deepen our investments in the future of our children. We are focusing on some of the schools that need help the most. They're in the process of being turned around. Our Renewal schools, 94 schools that we plan to turn around and make strong. We are including $12.7 million in this budget for extended learning time in those Renewal schools, $2.2 million for school-based health centers in those Renewal schools, bringing our total investment in the Renewal school effort to over $163 million for fiscal 16. And that number signifies a true commitment to making schools that were often ignored the strong schools for all children they should be. Second, and this is an area where the Council strongly urged action, we are expanding access to one of the core elements of all our communities, our libraries. You can clap for that. In cooperation with the Council, $39 million will be added to the budget for libraries. This will allow us to get to universal 6-day library service all over New York, and will allow for extended hours at libraries in many locations. Third, we're making a critical investment in the future safety of all New Yorkers and in the relationship between police and community, and a need to turn that into a deeper partnership. It's well known the Council has been advocating over the last 2 years to increase the number of police on our force. There have been long conversations, particularly over the last few weeks, on what was the right thing to do in terms of, and through a lot of work, we came to a plan that allows us to strengthen our police force while encouraging deepening of reform, while finding key reforms on the fiscal front. And I'll outline quickly, we'll be adding 1,297 uniformed officers to the ranks of the NYPD. That will take our force from approximately 34,500 officers today to nearly 35,800 officers by July 1st, 2016, the end of the new fiscal year. These officers will be devoted to two key efforts. First, a new counterterrorism effort focused on our critical response vehicles. This will be a dedicated, trained, and carefully equipped force to focus solely on counterterrorism efforts. No longer will officers be pulled out of precincts for these type of counter-terror patrols. They will be a dedicated, trained force that's solely focused on that area. And second, officers for our precincts will be part of a pioneering neighborhood policing strategy. This will be a brand new thing in this city, something that's been talked about in various forums for decades, but will now happen for the first time in a full and high-impact way. And we believe it will help us achieve our shared vision of bringing police and community together while keeping crime low. Details of this vision will be unveiled over the next few days, but what it means is really a comprehensive new approach that revolutionizes the way we bring police and community together and the way we police our streets. The administration and the council have been equally committed at the same time to fostering real fiscal reform when it comes to the police budget. Two areas have historically been a focus of the council. I commend them for that: civilianization in our police force and creating real caps on overtime spending and real reform in that area. Well, that's been achieved. We will secure over $70 million in savings when this plan is fully phased in. That will come from a cap on overtime, a very public and clear cap on overtime spending, and through the civilianization effort, moving 415 officers from desk jobs to work on the streets of our city, so the police department is using all of its personnel most effectively. These are targeted investments that we know are going to make a huge difference in the future of our city, and they came together after weeks of hard work, and we think this is a plan that really works for New York City. Quickly in Spanish, before turning to the speaker, me complace mucho anunciar el presupuesto del año fiscal 2016, un plan honesto, progresista, responsable y a tiempo, que logramos trabajando codo a codo con el Consejo. Nuestro presupuesto colaborativo ayudará a asegurar un futuro sólido donde todos los neoyorquinos se sienten seguros y protegidos en nuestra ciudad. Juntos estamos invirtiendo para agregar tiempo de enseñanza y servicios médicos para los estudiantes de nuestros Renewal Schools, asegurar que nuestras bibliotecas abran 6 días por semana y contratar a nuevos oficiales de policía, a la vez que aseguramos ahorros sin precedentes. With that, I want to thank a leader who's been a tremendous partner in this process. She's worked extraordinarily hard to bring us all together for this good result. I want to thank her, Speaker Melissa Mark-Viverito.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor, and this has been a truly collaborative process, and that being the case, I'm going to take a moment to recognize those of my colleagues that are here. First of all, Majority Leader Jimmy Van Bramer, Margaret Chin, Corey Johnson, Helen Rosenthal, Mark Levine, Inez Dickens, Idanis Rodriguez, Andrew Cohen, Andy King, Richie Torres, Vanessa Gibson, Paul Vallone, Peter Koo, Costa Constantinidis, Danique Miller, Karen Koslowitz, Elizabeth Crowley, Donovan Richards, Steve Levin, Antonio Reynoso, Lori Cumbo, Robert Cornegie, Rafael Espinal, Carlos Menchaca, Brad Lander, Darlene Neely, Vincent Gentili, David Greenfield, Jomani Williams, Mark Traeger, Chaim Deutsch, Debbie Rose, and Matthew Eugene. I want to thank them all. I hope I got everybody. Thank them for being here. This agreement is the culmination of a lot of hard work, and before we get into the great wins in this budget, I just want to thank a few people in particular. First, I would like to thank our chair of our Finance Committee, Julissa Ferreras Copeland. She led hundreds of hours of substantive, thoughtful, and pointed budget hearings. This process has been rewarding and informative because of your leadership, and I thank you. I also want to thank our budget negotiating team for their hard work throughout this process. In hours of meetings, early in the morning and late into the night, I want to thank the budget negotiating team. Also, the borough delegation chairs and all our council colleagues who invest so much time and energy in advocating for a budget which truly helps people across the city. This city council truly operates collectively, and this budget process is better for it. I want to thank Mayor de Blasio for working with us so collaboratively throughout this process. And lastly, I want to thank the wonderful finance staff led by the incredible LaTanya McKinney. LaTanya started in the council as an entry-level staffer, and today she's overseeing the whole division. And it's a testament to her incredible hard work, and we want to thank her and a whole division. And if you have not been able to do the counting, that is 3 women and women of color leading the budget negotiations for this city council.
Hey, help them count. Let me help you with that.
So this is an on-time, fiscally responsible budget, as the mayor mentioned, consisting of $78 billion, including $280 million in council initiatives that will uplift New Yorkers and is going to make a difference in every neighborhood across this great city. Whether you're in Staten Island, the Bronx, Queens, Brooklyn, or Manhattan, it's a budget that works for you. It's a budget that defends the vulnerable, will keep our economy on track, and prioritizes public safety. And for the second year in a row, we're demonstrating that government can work efficiently and effectively, just as New Yorkers expect and deserve. When government functions without sideshows, it's New Yorkers who benefit. This is a budget which is going to invest in our youth. They are the future of our city, and this budget builds on their tomorrow by investing in their today, by creating 50,000 summer youth jobs, and 6,000 year-round youth jobs, as well as expanding after-school programs. This is also a budget which will invest in education by bringing breakfast to more than 500 elementary schools and nearly 37,000 students. We know that children get the most out of their education when they have nutrition they need to focus and succeed, and that is why the council has advocated so strongly for this crucial initiative, and thank you, Mayor de Blasio. Each of these were council priorities, and we're happy to have successfully fought for them. The council, as mentioned, with the support, obviously, of the mayor, is renewing 6-day service at our public libraries. We're also committing real resources for our seniors. We know that is one of the fastest growing populations in our city, and they are pretty active and vocal. This budget commits to over 5,000 units of senior housing within 5 years with on-site social services. And unfortunately, elder abuse continues to be a real issue, and so we're seeing a historic high in elder abuse services with $2.3 million, which we will be investing in. Also, with regards to our veterans, we've been very staunch advocates for this community and for increasing the resources and the services for our Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs, and this budget honors that commitment by expanding the office and bringing it out into the communities by working directly in council offices. The council asked to double the budget on the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs, and that is what is happening. This office has long been in need of adequate resources to effectively serve veterans, and now that gap is finally addressed. And finally, this is a budget which invests heavily in public safety and criminal justice reform, because we cannot have one without the other. That is why the budget includes $1.4 million for a citywide bail fund. Many New Yorkers charged with minor nonviolent offenses end up being locked up in pretrial detention solely because they cannot afford bail. They are poor. In fact, even where bail is $500 or less, only 15% can afford to pay it immediately. And we all know the consequences that time gives to these individuals. In addition to the harsh impact of doing time in jail, housing an inmate costs the city around $100,000 a year. And too often these defendants, mostly young men of color, serve more time in pretrial detention than they would have for their actual sentence, and clearly that is not justice. So this bail fund is critical, and it will save the city in incarceration costs, and it works. The type of fund is authorized by state law, and we're going to make sure that we implement that, and we are committed to that with the investment we're making in this budget. The bail fund, combined with the City Council's summons reform proposals, will change lives and alter trajectories for the better. At the same time, we recognize, appreciate, and honor the fine work of our police officers and the work that our Commissioner, Bill Bratton, is doing. For 2 years, the Council has called for an expanded police force, which would allow for more community policing and better interactions at the same time that we're implementing reforms and calling for reforms, at the same time that we're providing for a bail fund, at the same time that we are demanding changes in low-level summonses and the way they are treated. All of that combined with the investment in social services and youth jobs is a comprehensive, holistic vision. And so today, we heard from the mayor that the NYPD will add about 1,300 officers in the force and civilianize about 400. So we're talking about 1,700 more officers on the street, keeping New Yorkers safe. By expanding community policing and bringing the police and communities they serve closer together, we can continue to bridge the divide while also making our city safer. Every day, the men and women of the NYPD put their lives on the line, keeping New Yorkers safe, and this City Council is proud to support them. All in all, this budget will ensure that while we're investing in raising the headcount, we're investing in key social services, job opportunities, education, and others, because that is how we ensure strong communities get even stronger. So I want to again thank my council colleagues for a job well done. And as we've said, this has been an open, collaborative process, and we're proud of what we've accomplished. This City Council is making a difference. And if I could just say a few words in Spanish and then pass it on to our finance chair. Este acuerdo es el futuro del trabajo arduo de mucha gente y muestra que este Consejo Municipal verdaderamente opera de manera colectiva. Este presupuesto es uno para todos los neoyorquinos y hará una gran diferencia en todas las comunidades a través de esta gran ciudad. Es un presupuesto que defiende a los más vulnerables, que mantiene a nuestra economía en el carril correcto y da prioridad a la seguridad pública. Es un presupuesto que hará una gran inversión en nuestra juventud, en nuestros envejecientes, en nuestros veteranos. Es un presupuesto que tomará en cuenta las vidas de los residentes de nuestra vivienda pública, la comunidad inmigrante y aquellos más necesitados de una reforma de justicia criminal. Es un presupuesto que aumentará la cantidad de policías con mejores interacciones con nuestras comunidades. En fin, es un presupuesto para todos los neoyorquinos que aumentará los servicios sociales, oportunidades de empleo y de educación, porque así lograremos fortalecer nuestras comunidades. Muchas, muchas gracias. And with that, I would like to invite our great chair of the Finance Committee, Julissa Ferreras Copeland, to say a few words.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Thank you to the Speaker, and thank you to our Mayor, and thank you to all my council colleagues. We've done this together. I want to do something a little differently. I want to acknowledge the working moms at City Hall. We have sacrificed so much so that the sun can rise over the city tomorrow morning with a budget that is responsible. Latanya McKinney is director of the council's finance division, and she is one of those women. Thank you to her. Thank you to her. I want to thank her mother, Carolyn Scott, who flew in from California to care for her daughter while she worked on this budget. And thank you to my mom, who watched over my little Julian so I could be here to fulfill my role and my dream as the budget watchdog. My council colleagues, I have worked hard, and this budget was written with our sweat, but our families have also worked hard and have sacrificed, and it is upon their shoulders that we stand today. So thank you, moms, husbands, wives, and all of our families. Thank you to the entire finance division, to our district office staffs that held down the fort, because it's our district office staff that continue the work there so that we can be here to pass this budget tonight. This is the second year working for New York City as the chair of the Finance Committee, and I am proud to say we have continued our commitment to a more progressive government that stresses inclusion and transparency during the budget process. Under Speaker Mark-Viverito's leadership, every individual council member has provided considerable insight, and it is because of this inclusion and their hard work that today we have a budget that addresses the needs of all 51 council districts. When it comes to honesty in the budget, I am pleased to say the mayor's office has responded to my demands or questions for transparency and greater detail in the budget. The council has been equal partners in this process, and we look forward to greater dialogue and latitude. Our time, this budget cycle was spent on meaningful negotiations with a mayor that understands and respects the role of the council. We were able to keep laser focus on our budget priorities, like ensuring our investments reflect each agency's needs and responsible investment for the long term. Many of the priorities we as a body have championed will be included in the adopted budget, and these victories are shared by everyone, including the City Council, the mayor, and every New Yorker. I'm particularly proud of 3 major wins, and I know that they've been said, but I'm going to say them again. Employment for youth is of utmost importance for the future of this city. Having a job when you're a young person can make the difference between having gainful employment or living in poverty as an adult. Many of my colleagues and I are living proof that summer youth employment programs work. So I am incredibly proud to have secured $21 million to expand the program, and the cherry on top, we secured an additional $12 million to create a year-long employment youth program, and I want to thank in particular Councilmember Williams for your effort. This council has fought hard to acquire adequate funding for our library systems because we recognize that there are vital resources for all New Yorkers. There's a lot of work left to be done, but today we have a commitment of $39 million to expand services to 6 days a week to all libraries in New York City. Thank you to all the council members who supported this push, particularly Majority Leader Van Bramer and Council Member Costa Constantinidis. We have big victories for our seniors as well. $4.8 million is going to eliminate the waiting list for home care because no senior in need should be left unattended. And $2 million, a historic amount, will go towards elder abuse prevention. Thank you to Councilmember Chin for speaking loudly and clear. Last, we resolved the issues created by the previous administration when they baseline funding to council initiatives. $25 million will go towards community-based organizations that were at jeopardy of losing vital funding in 2016. And we have commitment from the administration to revisit the procurement process to ensure the smaller community-based organizations can be competitive. Again, I can't thank you enough. I can't thank you enough. Thank you to Mayor de Blasio and Dean Fulahan. But again, this is a victory for all of us. Gracias.
Step forward, please. All right, thank you, everyone. We welcome your questions.
Mayor, you said repeatedly that you didn't think hiring additional officers was necessary. Is that something you changed your mind on, and if so, when and why?
It's been a process since the executive budget, so it's really been over the last 6 weeks. A lot of discussion with the council, and I remind you the council is our partner in this process. Their voice matters a lot. That was a key factor. Obviously, a key factor was the cost savings that this council and I both for a long time have been seeking major reforms that we wanted to see in the NYPD. We're now going to reach a level of civilianization that's absolutely historic. And also, for the first time in memory, there's going to be a firm overtime cap, which is something I know the council's been working on for many years, and I've believed in for many years. So this is about some historic and crucial fiscal reforms. As we say, they will save us upwards of about $70 million a year as this plan is fully phased in. And then lastly, I think the vision for a different relationship and a better relationship between police and community that Commissioner Bratton has been working with us on. He, as you know, over the last year and a half did a full reevaluation of the department and its capacity and what was working well and what had to be improved. He's been talking with the Speaker and I over the last weeks about this vision. And the more we heard, I think the more we saw a pathway to something truly pioneering, the beginning of real neighborhood policing in this city, something that has never really been achieved on a sustained basis. I think when you add all those factors together, it made sense to me that we should make this move.
Mr. Mayor, how did you reach that number, though? It's so far above what even the council had originally asked for.
Well, again, I think the two of the building blocks, you'll get more details on the plan over the coming days on the way to budget adoption, but two of the building blocks are pretty straightforward. The council had felt for a long time that 1,000 new officers was the right direction to go in, and again, their voice matters a lot in this process. The second big factor, the commissioners talked about over the last couple of months, the vision of having over 300 officers devoted to anti-terrorism duty in a very dedicated fashion through our critical response vehicles. This, on one level, is a combining of those two concepts. But as I said, you'll have more detail played out over the next few days.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Is the reserve funds, the various reserve funds, are they intact?
Yes.
2.6, the 1 billion?
They're intact. Obviously, we were able to bring in some additional revenue. The reserve funds are intact, and as the next few days progress and we fine-tune the budget, we'll give you an update on those funds. Yes?
Well, I understand you're going to be saving money with overtime, but what is the total cost of those 1,300 cops with pension costs over the lifetime?
We'll get you, again, there'll be some very detailed briefings over the next couple of days. We'll get you that play out, but we believe when you look at the cost of the officers and the impact we think it'll make, and then look at the savings we achieve simultaneously, we think it's a good fiscal deal as well as one, obviously a plan that'll make a big impact on safety and police-community relations.
Can we just get a ballpark tonight?
Again, I want to make sure we give you the details. Dean Foulihan will do that with you separately. But again, the key thing, the one thing we can say for sure is as the plan plays out, we expect about $70 million in savings a year. Yes.
Right now, there's obviously an outstanding issue with disability pensions, and given that you're hiring hundreds of more officers, does that concern you that Albany has not come to a resolution and they don't support your plan?
I think Albany should recognize that we have to really put a high priority on our long-term fiscal health. Again, that was a crucial factor in everything we did in this budget here. And I remind you that everything that happens at the federal level and at the state level ultimately comes down to here, and we often are the ones who end up paying the bill. So I'd like Albany to respect the will of this city as expressed by a vote of the City Council and by the plan that I put forward, and recognize that we've offered an alternative that really will protect our first responders when they're disabled, but will not create such a pressure for taxpayers in the future. We don't want to mortgage the future. We don't want to put all the problems of the future on the next generation. We have a plan that we think really protects people while being fair to the taxpayer.
There's been a lot of talk this budget season, and others who want to join in, about the budget dance being over. But do you think it's indicative that there is some level of a budget dance if 2 weeks ago you were saying that you didn't think there needed to be any new police officers?
I was here for the golden years of the budget dance. Obviously, the Speaker can offer her views. My experience of it was that it was a game everyone understood where, every year firehouses were going to be closed and then they weren't. Teachers were going to be laid off and then they weren't. People's attention were directed toward fake cuts, and that's where the energy went. Well, this process was about real additions and real improvements. But there was a real debate about which choices to make, how to make them, what kind of offsets we needed. As I said, we were both adamant about cost savings when it came to that police plan, for example. Yeah, please.
Yeah, those of us that are here for a second and not even our third term know what a budget dance is. This is definitely not the budget dance. We put forward a response to the preliminary budget, which was taken into account seriously. We saw $148 million added in the executive budget that was presented to us based on information and feedback we provided in our preliminary. So this is a serious engagement that we're in. Our thoughts, our process is being taken seriously by this administration and factored into the executive budget. And since the executive, there's been additional negotiations on issues where we maybe have had different points of views. But again, we've arrived at a point of agreement. And again, it's definitely not the budget dance as we've seen in prior iterations.
Now, do you specifically think that this increase is going to do something to stem the increase in shootings and murders that we've seen, and did that happening play any role in your decision to agree to this?
I want to give you the numbers as they are at this moment, then let me answer the question, but I want to just first frame it. You've heard me say more than once, crime down 6.7% now from the same point last year. I think a number of you have followed the events of the last week, where this last week compared to the same week a year ago, homicides down 75%, shootings down 38%. This is just the first full week of having summer all out in effect. It's already making a huge difference. So I think the tide is being turned right now. The plan we're talking about here is about the long term. We're really talking about the long-term vision for this city, and particularly transcending the problems we've had in the past in the relationship between police and community in many of our neighborhoods. This is about actually getting to neighborhood policing for the long term, and that's what's so exciting about this plan.
When you talk about the additions of school lunches and breakfasts, how close are we to actually universal? Are you there yet, or is it just expanded?
I'll start and you join if you want. Look, we kept, from our point of view, we kept the lunch program where it was at the middle school level because we want to do more, and this is something, this exact example what the speaker mentioned a moment ago. The first year with the school lunch program didn't achieve what all of us had hoped, but as the speaker pointed out to us, there has to be a much stronger promotional effort, an effort to engage parents and students. So we're going to do that in this coming year. But breakfast was another area where we agreed there was an opportunity for a major breakthrough. The council pushed very hard that this be included now in the budget on a large scale with the elementary school level. So this will ultimately cover all elementary schools for breakfast. Lunch will continue to work on, by fiscal 18. And lunch will continue to work on the pilot from the first year and hopefully get better results and continue to build from there.
I wonder if you could tell us what neighborhoods the police will go to and what neighborhood policing means exactly.
Look, it is a holistic vision for the city, first of all. As usual, the neighborhoods will be determined by where the need is greatest, as with all things involving policing, but it's something that will really affect all areas of the city ultimately. The vision is to have police deeply connected to neighborhoods. Officers who will walk a beat, get to know a community, get to know community leaders and clergy, have a real familiarity with the needs of the community, and build trust. And it is a much more of a geographical focus, moving away from some of the, I think, mistakes of the past where officers constantly moved from location to location, never got to build those relationships. We think it's going to lead to a lot more intelligence gathering, a lot more cooperation, a lot more safety for officers and citizens alike. So neighborhood policing, and for a lot of us, this is something we have hoped for 2 decades or more. And we believe this plan with this council, with this commissioner, that we've actually found that moment in history where it's going to happen. I think it is an evolution of the concept. Obviously, community policing had a lot of different forms. I think this is an approach that's both very neighborhood-based but also robust about how to fight crime.
Mr. Mayor, the council is including money for the bail fund, but last week you said you supported some form of bail reform, and so you're not putting any money in it. Can you talk about that? And since the administration's not putting any money in it, are you worried for the bail fund in the future, or is this something you're going to continue to have to
Well, we do these things, obviously, in most cases 1 year at a time, and this is a brand new concept. Look, I think the council is putting it in good faith, based on a desire to keep people out of Rikers Island who shouldn't be there. We agree with the basic criteria. It must be for very low-level crimes, nonviolent crimes. There's going to be a screening process to make sure that the individuals who might qualify do not have a violent history of previous violent offenses. But I agree with the speaker's core point. If someone ends up in Rikers Island simply because they can't afford a very modest bail, it doesn't help any of us, and it certainly costs the taxpayer a lot. You want to join in?
The bail fund will pay for itself, right? The money is issued and then it gets back, so it becomes kind of a revolving fund. And we'll be doing assessments. There currently are pilots in place that have demonstrated to be successful. There's still details to sort. The fact that we put sort of the money there, it indicates our commitment, but there's conversations also being engaged with private funders potentially as well. This is a real vision, this is a real commitment we have, and at least that initial investment will continue to be there moving forward.
Two more questions.
There are two more. Going once. Right here. Where? I hear a voice, yes.
Aside from the overtime cap, what persuaded you to change your position on the number of new cops?
Well, I spoke to that before, but I'll just summarize. It's a combination of the council's prioritization of more officers, the cost savings that we found that are historic and had never been achieved before. This will be the highest level of civilianization ever achieved by the NYPD. This will be the first time, at least in anyone's memory, that we will have a public and clear overtime cap. Those are huge reforms to the tune of about $70 million a year when this is fully implemented. And then finally, the vision that the commissioner has been working on over the last few months for neighborhood policing. And this is a different vision than we've ever seen before in this city. After extensive conversations with the commissioner, and the speakers had those conversations, I've had those conversations, we recognize that this could be truly groundbreaking, that this could take us to the place we've wanted to go for a long time and literally take us to the next level in policing, both in terms of securing our safety, but also bringing police and community together. Last call. Sally, wait, Sally didn't get one yet. Sally.
What is the overtime cap?
The overtime cap, again, as we get toward adoption, we'll lay out the details to you, but it's going to be a public cap. It's going to be very clear as part of the budget. It's going to be a hard number. And as Commissioner Bratton has said very proudly, when he was commissioner the first time in this city, he was very adamant about controlling overtime costs and was successful at doing it. And he has said to me very forthrightly that that's part of what management and leadership is setting a point that you won't go past. We believe this is an important reform. That should not be a moving target. Obviously, there could be absolutely extraordinary events like a Hurricane Sandy, where we will account for that. But we're talking about in anything like a normal year, a cap that will certainly allow for all overtime to be accommodated, and it will create some fiscal discipline, which has been needed in that area. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.